Whitney Houston once sang that the children are our future. But she isn't here, is she? And children are the absolute worst. So get Child Protective Services on the line, because this week, Sex and the Shitty is going scorched earth. This week, Sex and the City coughs up an episode called Hot Child in the City, which I assume accidentally brought the show a 1-week boost in a very specific and unwanted demographic. The child in question is Jenny Breyer, the 13-year-old crotch spawn of a well-off restaurateur who, I'm just gonna say it, should have hit his kids more. Jenny's upcoming $1 million bat mitzvah party sends her down to Samantha's office in search of a publicist capable of meeting her lofty demands. Aside from a host of magazines that she wants at the event, the only 2 celebrity guests she names are Carson Daly and NSYNC. Hopefully the venue has a balcony I can throw myself off. As you may have noticed, Jenny is played with demonic glee by a miniature Kat Dennings, she of Two Broke Girls fame. The seemingly omnipresent Jenny later interrupts a lunch summit between Samantha, Carrie and Miranda, flanked by 2 similarly vapid nepotism babies. Despite their wealth, all 3 are styled like they just came from an audition for an early version of the Cheetah Girls that was scrapped due to a herpes outbreak. What Samantha seems to be struggling with is a touch of jealousy, because she didn't get a childhood like Jenny's. Though I'm not sure there's much to be gained from envying the life of what is, essentially, a mini Paris Hilton.
Stupid spoiled whore, video playset.
At the bat mitzvah itself, Samantha runs the door, taking no small amount of delight in informing teary-eyed, overprivileged living tax breaks that Queen Bee Jenny doesn't even know they exist. Literally my dream job. Inside, common sense finally prevails when Samantha overhears Jenny and her friends discussing an R-rated to-do list which probably has most of the boys in attendance propelling themselves towards the exits on jet streams of fear piss.
I'm gonna totally at least 3 of those 5 NSYNC guys after the after party, and I heard the other 2 are gay. So, I'd them and their gay boyfriends.
When an intervention predictably fails, Sam realises that her jealousy is misplaced because she actually got a childhood. Whereas the only way that Jenny's going to experience the innocence of youth is if she gets kicked in the head by one of her many ponies. If, like me, you enjoy a regular reminder of our central foursome's unbearable smugness, I have good news for you. Their endless search for Manhattan's wankiest, most elitist endeavours leads them to what Carrie claims is the newest fad: haute cafeteria cuisine. It's just a school lunch, and there's no commentary whatsoever on how ridiculous it is that 4 mostly successful women think paying top dollar for a miserable salad and a Jell-O cup makes them cool and interesting. You could feed these people wartime rations, and as long as they got to wear a $1,000 bandana and be photographed doing it, they'd be camping out a week in advance. Oh, and Miranda gets braces. Then she decides she doesn't need them. It's really not that interesting. Carrie, wearing a Chanel outfit that looks like discharge from a cat abscess, heads for her favourite shoe repair place. Obviously anticipating a return visit from his worst customer, the owner has shut up shop, leaving in its place a comic book store owned and operated by sort of hot geek Wade. Interestingly, Wade only appears to sell DC books. Why? Because back in 2000, HBO was owned by Warner Brothers, who were owned by Time Warner, who in turn owned DC Comics. I'd call it vertical integration, but I think the only person who was into this show and superhero comics was, well, me. And while I'm on the topic, if you do happen to agree with the comic geeks equal losers vibe permeating this whole episode, just know that I was one of those kids. But you all queue around the block for the movies now, don't you? Gosh, isn't Captain America dashing? Oh no, Spider-Man's all sad and dusty. Ooh, Joker's saying all the things I think but get told not to bring up at family dinners. Get f***ed. Anyway, Wade, blinded by the presence of a woman who doesn't need to be periodically reinflated, shoots his shot by introducing Carrie to his self-published magnum opus, Power Lad.
Wow!
With that level of literary unoriginality, the two of them might actually be soulmates. All it takes is an admittedly impressive but deeply misguided rendering of Carrie as Wonder Woman to colour her intrigued, and she decides to give Wade a chance. That would be the same Wonder Woman that Carrie claims to like because...
I used to love that even her accessories had superpowers. Oh man.
And not, for example, because she's a feminist icon. Of course. Mind you, the fact that this episode involves comic books isn't so surprising when you know who wrote it. Alan Heinberg is our scribe this week, co-creator of Marvel's Young Avengers, screenwriter of the first Wonder Woman film, and developer of The Sandman on Netflix. Don't get used to this level of quality though, he only does 3 more episodes next season before he understandably nopes out. After a first date at Times Square arcade Barcode, where a presumably homesick Carrie rides a VR mission to Mars, Wade whips out a micro-scooter for his own journey home, which, over the age of 15, has to be reasonable grounds for pushing somebody into traffic. They scoot right on over to his place, where Carrie wonders how a man of Wade's seemingly humble means could afford such prime real estate. She isn't left wondering for long because his mother pops out to say hello. And it's the same actress who later played the mother of Liz Lemon in 30 Rock. Samantha's take on this development is...
Not sexy, honey. Dump him immediately. Here, use my cell phone.
unsympathetic. She claims that the only man still living with his parents that she'd date is Prince William. She might need to go shopping first. As it turns out, Carrie has less of a problem with the whole thing than she thought she would, having found an angle on it that she can get behind. What angle would that be, you ask?
It was like having servants you didn't have to pay.
You're describing a slave, Carrie. At least she's consistently awful.
The worst!
The wheels finally come off Wade's bat scooter when, after getting caught smoking expensive Canadian pot by his parents, he blames Carrie for it to dodge a disinheritance. Carrie takes the blame, but also makes off with the stash, seemingly never to see Wade again. It's not very Wonder Woman of her, but then again...
And the world will be as one.
Maybe they're not so different after all. At her wit's end, with her dead marital bedroom, Charlotte hunts for an answer online. There, she finds a surgical solution, involving the implantation of what appears to be a cross between a medieval torture device and something you'd use to inseminate cows. When husband Trey returns home, Charlotte's lurking in the bedroom, ineptly hiding her printout about artificial bonk-ons behind a book, like a shit spy. Also, shout out to whoever was filming the insert shots for this episode after they clearly forgot to get one of the printed page and instead just had to cut back to the computer screen. Trey is, I'd say, understandably reluctant to jump straight to having a series of foreign objects jammed up his scrotum. But at this point, it's either that or he's going to wake up at 2 AM to find Charlotte pouring cement mix into his gash mallet with a funnel. While it might not have been Charlotte's intention, the threat of
Hydraulic cylinders placed in his shaft
sends the pair of them down to couples counselling. Their therapist, who I'm 80% sure is Robin Williams pranking idiots in his downtime, suggests naming their genitalia something non-threatening. Charlotte and Trey elect to rechristen their nethers as, respectively,
Rebecca.
Schooner.
which sounds like a 70s sitcom about star-crossed lovers who meet in rehab for traumatic brain injuries. Not entirely inaccurate, I suppose. Great Value Patch Adams also assigns them homework. Lie in bed, don't touch, and share a naughty fantasy with each other. Can you guess what Charlotte's is? Go on, I'll give you a second.
fairy princess in a forest.
I mean, what else was it gonna be? Leaving alone the fact that what Charlotte describes sounds an awful lot like a sex crime in the 100-Acre Wood.
And that's when you pull me off my unicorn, you tear away my gossamer petticoats.
I had a visceral reaction to the phrase,
And you put your schooner deep inside my Rebecca.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I honestly think I'd rather be a eunuch. Apparently, Trey agrees, because it turns out that his fantasy is for Charlotte to immediately stop talking. He seemingly closes the book on the matter, huffing off to sleep with one eye open in case Mrs. McDougal tries to whip out a crotchless unicorn costume. It's an eye-opening of a different kind that Charlotte witnesses later that night though. Thinking she hears Trey crying in the bathroom, she walks in to find him bashing one out over a jazz mag, which gives rise to the best series of faces she ever pulls. On their therapist's advice, Charlotte finds a way to involve herself in Trey's secret nocturnal fantasy life. The way in question involves scrapbooking pictures of her face into his hand shandy library. It works, but I don't know. Is it a win if the only way your husband can get excited is by staring at something that looks like it was found down the back of Ted Bundy's dresser? There's just enough time left to tell you that last week's top comment came courtesy of Bilger, who once had a date with a dirty, lying, married guy. Normalise full background checks, private investigators, and why not, checking his blood against police databases before even opening a WhatsApp message, I say. This week's question is, if you were going to name your junk, what would you call it? Answers in the comments below please, and the best will expose itself in the next video. Either way, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, if you can't be good, be crusty.